And I was sitting in this big meeting and there was a real problem with the deal, and I just went, I think you got the clause the wrong way around and you just want to put not there. And the partner from Freshfields turned around and went, that is exactly the right answer. When you work out they're making it up, everyone else is making it up, stop pretending and go to your point, which is ask the question. That confidence is where you've got to start.
Courage comes before confidence.
Hi, I'm Mark Bailie. I'm the Chief Executive of Compare the Market, and this is my Duvet flip.
Do you think it's the Meerkats that actually just made the brand go wrong?
When the Meerkats were discovered, right, we tried everything else. I think it's a stupid idea, but it's this or shut it down. And the answer was, it's this.
British culture says money's a dirty word. So is there also an education that we need to do around money shouldn't be a dirty word in certain situations?
This is, I think you're touching on one of the hardest things for us to deal with as a society. How's this? There's something to admit. Of all the people,
I
might actually just ring up Martin Lewis and get him to explain it to me.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip a duvet?
Che vuoi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto guai. Chi sei? Chi sei?
Decent amount of kit you've got.
It is, isn't it? I don't know what it all is. Every time they're like, can we add a new thing? I'm like, okay. But it's been set up in a way where the British cycling team, the 1%.
Yeah.
So everything we've got here is all 1% added each time.
Yeah.
So British culture tells you British culture, when you go into someone's house, they say don't ask for a tea if it's in the cupboard, don't put someone out. Yeah. So when we first started, no one would have a cup of tea.
Wouldn't they?
No, they didn't want a cup of tea because it's all in the cupboard. So now we've got the trolley.
That's why you got it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
And no one rejects a cup of tea now.
I love the story that just by putting the caddy out,
everyone has a cup of tea.
Brilliant.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Mark, tell me a little bit. I've been so excited. We've been connected on LinkedIn for a bit.
Yeah.
That's my kind of platform.
Yeah.
I know it's your kind of platform as well. Tell me a little bit about who is Mark? Where did he start? What was your first job?
So my parents were okay, well off. I went to state school lived in a little village in Buckinghamshire. Never went to London. So London was this big, scary place at the end of the railway. My first job was in the local greengrocer, prepping the cauliflowers, prepping the cabbages, which is brutally cold in the run-up to Christmas. I then did everything from working the local pubs, night shift in the local garlic bread factory. That's a pretty brutal job. And that was just to get through university, finish university, and it's like, if you go back to the 1980s, TV was full of programs like LA Law and Capital City, and I'd say London was like 50 miles down the railway track, and I sort of always thought I wanted to go into finance. Didn't know what to do. Asked my dad, and he was on the board of a small engineering company, and he said, look, it took me until I was in my 50s until I understood the numbers. So go and become a chartered accountant. You'll never regret it, and it'll give you this really good base training. So I did that for 3 years. I then did a couple of years of corporate finance, sort of helping companies buy and sell each other. 10 years of private equity, buying and selling companies, investing in companies. And then in 2010, I was asked to go back to RBS to help the restructuring, and this was when it is cataclysmically bust. Eventually, with a really close friend of mine, a guy called Chris Marks, we ended up running non-core, and over 6 years we got rid of all of the toxic assets, shut down all of the operations in North America, got us out of Asia, restructured the investment bank, I think sold about £400 billion worth of assets over that time. Was then Chief Operating Officer of the bank, so running all of the data, offshore processing centres, payment systems for the bank. Built a little bank like Monzo on an app, which is sort of an MBA in technology. So I'd always been came from the finance side and actually having to run effectively a startup technology company. There was then CEO succession. We agreed that I would go and do something else. And I was looking for UK financial services, technology, distribution, not manufacturing, of people who helped customers find products rather than actually lent them money or did their insurance. And the thing I learned from the little startup bank was you obsess about the technology, and then the day after you launch, you realise nobody knows who you are. And I desperately wanted a company with a brand. That's when I met Debbie Hewitt, who's the chair. It's the hardest thing in the world to pretend in a job interview that you don't desperately want the job. I wanted the job from the moment I read the spec. Luckily, Debbie and I see eye to eye, and we've had a brilliant 4 years.
She's a brilliant human.
She is an amazing human. As a first chair, she's amazing. And so for the last 4 years, I've run Compare the Market. We've really focused it down now onto the comparison business. And we serve 32 million of the 50 million adults in the UK.
Wow. And was there this grand plan? Because it seems like those steps just all synced really nicely. I know that doesn't happen in careers, and they say, oh, never trust a hockey business plan. Was there bumps in the road? Did you know that you was going to become one of the COO of a massive bank? Did you, when your dad said to you, go and figure out numbers? Or was you just like, you know what, figure it out as we go? Because you go online and some places go, okay, here, have a 5-year plan, do this, do that. Do you need all that in your career?
No. So there's no grand plan. So what you've just had is what everyone gets to do, is I got to tell you the story in reverse from a really good endpoint. There are, what's the dirty little secret? I think I've probably had 100, 150 job interviews in my life. I've passed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 others which I turned down. So 150 attempts and 7 successful goes. So I think, and those bumps in the road, I made a terrible mistake in 2005, which was the second job I took in private equity. It's the only time I've ever taken a job for the money. So got seduced, knew the people weren't very nice, pretty miserable 5 years. And then the financial crisis came, that business effectively got shut down. My career there was effectively done. And it was a pretty dark day. I was sitting there thinking, this is all over. So there are lots of times when I've been, I don't actually know what I'm going to do now. I don't know where it is. And the secret to careers, I always think, is people talk to you about the career ladder. And actually what you're looking at is almost like a snakes and ladders board. And some of those ladders are actually escalators. It's about recognizing those escalators when they come, number one. Number two, if you go to work one day, if you want to go home at 5 o'clock every night, and you don't feel pretty uncomfortable about where you are on the learning curve, i.e. it's really steep and you're struggling to keep up, you're not going hard enough. And actually, if you run your career in a different way, which is work really hard, learn every day, stay on the really steep bit of the learning curve. So when you're good at something, do something else, learn the next skill. and keep your eyes open for the escalators and the snakes. And then the plan will come. I grew up in Lagos in Nigeria because my dad was building Guinness breweries in the 1970s.
What happens when you, using the analogy, you do end up landing on a snake and going a few pegs back? And how does one, and how do you currently build resilience in a world of hate and a world of chaos sometimes? You just find those magic moments, don't you? But what do you do?
So, my go-to place is exercise. So I find out for a 4 or 5 hour bike ride in the hills, torturing yourself physically, your brain shuts down, and that gives you space and allows you to sort of work through what's really gone on. There's a realization that comes with age, which is you can be great, but the situation can be bad, and even if the situation is good, you can be just not suited to it. So failing isn't terminal, and it's not a reflection on you. It's just one of those things that happen. So anyone who goes all the way to the top and says, no, I never failed along the way, it's like, I think that's a lie.
Absolutely.
and sort of knowing that at the beginning, which is, it's not all going to be a bed of roses. It's hard work, luck, take your knocks, come back. And I think that resilience you're asking about comes with knowing it's not all going to be perfect. You're going to make some bad calls. Things aren't going to go your way. But if you always have that in mind at the beginning, it's easier to take it when it happens. Absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean you accept it at all. It means you need to push on and find the next thing, but it stops that self-doubt, which is what really kills you.
And you're still on the snake and ladders board, aren't you? To carry on going, to look at it that way. 150 interviews and only 7. That's quite daunting, right? For those who are starting their career to think, I have to go potentially to 150 interviews. Well, yes, because you have to put the hard work in, and not every opportunity is going to be right. You're going to reject some. They're going to reject you.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why do you think you failed at those 143?
Why did I fail?
Why didn't you get the job, do you think?
Some of them were, I was just immature. I remember I was at a sort of Diageo graduate intake thing, and someone asked me what motivated me, and I said the money. And because at 21 I thought it was the money. Now clearly there's a tick box somewhere at the back of the form that goes, if anyone applies and says they're only in it for the money, you put a cross and you don't take them through. So clearly I just walked straight into that trap. There was actually a bank I've got a huge amount of respect for now, but I interviewed with them when I was 24, and the feedback from the headhunter was, you went to state school, you went to Manchester, just not posh enough. Now, some of those jobs wouldn't have been right for me, and actually I'm sure at the time the companies that didn't hire me probably made the right choice. So some of it was just fit. Some of it was your CV's not good enough, which it wasn't, frankly. I think if you went and asked my mum, she throws her hands up in horror about the fact that I didn't work hard enough in my A-levels, blew an offer to Cambridge, ended up at a university I'd never been to, slightly coasted my way through. So, and she said, so when you're looking for a job, you're now paying the price for your laziness when you were 17. Yeah, it means I've got to work harder now, and I think it's just reality. You will get rejected, and part of it is understanding that when you get rejected, it's not about you quite often, it's quite often about them.
In that moment, when you're told that you're not posh enough, you went to state school from Manchester, how do you respond and not react? It's quite hard, isn't it? And I've been told all my life, because I came from a council estate and I'm from Essex and I am how I am, oh, what are you here for? And then when you actually say, they change their kind of, you're here to see the CEO, okay. But how do you manage that kind of stuff?
Look, it's one of those realities in life, which some people feel that way. Like, I think they're mad. And I think having a really deep sense of personal self-worth. So I'm good enough to do this, I'm going to make it happen. And then just accepting that sometimes not everyone's going to see it.
So 150 interviews, and I just want to stay on this part of it, Mark, because I know how scary going for an interview can be for all walks of life, anxiety, stress, and all sorts. So you've been interviewed 150 times, and I would say, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you must have at least been interviewing at least 150 people to join one of your organisations. So you're kind of like an interview pro, which is good, because we need one of them.
Okay.
So tell me some of the things. What would be your advice in terms of do's and don'ts? And these are just recommendations, right? We understand that different companies want different ways of interviewing, but from your experience and your opinion, what are 3 things that you say in an interview, if you don't do these 3 things, there's probably a good chance that you won't get the job? And what are the 3 things that if you do these 3 things, there's definitely a chance that you won't get the job?
So 3 things you should do. Do your research. So one thing I find really impressive is I was hiring a head of data governance. Incredible guy called Matthew. He had actually been on the website and looked at the journey, and he had worked out how the job he was applying for, he could see the problem in the experience we had with our customers. Now, that's not that I want you to go and do the work and tell me what the answer is. What that shows is you care enough to have spent the time looking at it, number 1. Number 2, every job interview you go to will have a job spec. Companies obsess about those job specs before they put them out. So what you want to do is take it and break it down into all of the parts and actually work through what are they looking for and what do I have. And what that means is, because that job spec is a cheat sheet for the questions you're going to get asked. Now, they may not ask the question in an obvious way, but what they're looking for is like, we want these 10 things. Sitting on a piece of paper here is a list which is, can they give me evidence that they can satisfy those 10 things? And so always read that and always prepare against it. And then the third thing is, when you're in the moment and the question comes, pause. Because that little pause buys you that split second to really think, have I heard the question right? And if you haven't heard the question right, just ask. So those 3 things I think are things to do. The things that will stop you getting the job. Being someone you're not. So I don't think authenticity gets you the job, but people who are being inauthentic are absolutely transparent. You can see that they're pretending, number 1. Number 2, a real sort of arrogance that comes across, which is usually defensive. So there aren't very many people who are going for a job interview who actually are sitting there going, I'm the bee's knees, I can do it. But loads of people in that defensive moment they're trying to project confidence. And we know that it's a terrifying thing. So you walk in there and you're absolutely cocksure and I'm here to go. It's really easy to see. And then people who talk too fast and too much. Because again, what it's covering up is the fact they haven't done the work in the background. Interesting facts about Compare the Market. The Meerkats are now so popular. Alex's catchphrase, simples, is now in the Oxford English Dictionary. His memoir made it to the #1 Christmas book. and Sergey gets to do duets on TikTok with The Rock.
I want to talk a little bit about insurance.
Yep.
And I know everyone's probably thinking, insurance, why do you want to talk about that? But insurance is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
What is insurance? Why does insurance give the individual money powers? I talk about money powers. In life, you should create your money power skills. I grew up 3 nights a week without dinner. We had no money.
Yeah.
I've been able to change my life around. In the organisation I run, there's no investors, no dad's money.
Yeah.
I've done it from the ground up, bootstrapped. And money's given me a power to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Like this show helps 7 million young people find their duvet flip and build their careers from leaders like you. Well, what is insurance? And why is it important? And why is it a money power?
If you think about a car, so you've gone out, you've put a like 300 quid deposit in, you've got your £3 car. If someone, an uninsured driver, hits that car, so you're left exposed, or you hit something in that car, and let's say you hit another car by accident, just like a shunt on the A12 at 7 o'clock in the morning, you've got to pay for that damage. Now, on the basis you had to buy the car on finance in the first place, you didn't have the money to buy the car, you definitely don't have the money to fix the car. And that's what insurance does. What it does, it takes everyone in society and says, what we'll all do is, we know 10% of cars will get damaged every year. But what we'll do is we'll all pay 500 quid, and then collectively we're covered in case randomly we happen to be in that 10%. And the reason it's a money power is, if you don't have it, 1, you've got to pay back the finance on the car, and 2, you can't fix the car you've got already. So you're done at that point. How do I get to work? How do I go and see my parents at the weekend? How do I go to the gym? All of that disappears from your life, and suddenly you've got a debt you can't pay because you can't get to work, so you can't pay for it. So insurance is basically all of us collectively sharing the risk. And that is incredibly liberating, and means you can actually live your life. So the same truth, that's for your car, for your home. My daughter's flat, she bought it, she was getting there. Storms last February, roof ripped off. Right. No survey was going to tell her that the roof hadn't been put on properly, but she came home from work and literally her roof was in the garden across the road. It's like, that was £22,000 to fix. And if she hadn't had home insurance, which was, I think her share of it was 400 or 500 quid, she would have had to find £22,000 to put the roof back on the house. So that's what it does, that's what it protects you from. And the fact is, I know it's really hard to say, well, it's quite expensive, it might not be me. But unless you've got the £22,000, you definitely want to spend the 400, because it means you're protected. And that's why insurance is so important. Now, the stuff you really got to protect in life, by law, you've got to insure your car, you can't drive without it. Home insurance, if you've got a mortgage, your bank will make you have it. Contents, not mandatory, but you really should. Like a leak and you lose your TV or your carpets or your sofa, and most of us can't afford to just go out and buy another sofa or a new carpet. Since we've left the EU, going on holiday without travel insurance, it's like, what happens when you walk into a Spanish hospital and they ask you to pay? It's like, how are you going to cover that? That's what it's there for. It's there for the randomness of life, and that randomness is going to come at some point.
And do you think there's enough education?
No. Too many young people come out into society and they've never been taught about money. They've never been taught about how insurance works, how an overdraft works, what the charges are. Like, should you take a credit card or shouldn't you? And all of those, without a bit of education, are just huge traps. And what they do is they mean people can't save, they can't build deposits, they can't find their way out of life. So I think the fact that financial education isn't mandatory in schools is a disgrace.
In terms of compare the market, I'll turn to the Meerkats a little bit because I just think that's bloody brilliant. Like, do you think it's the Meerkats that actually just overnight just made the brand go boom? Because it's one of those British treasures now, isn't it?
It is, and the brand is amazing. Look, it's one of the reasons I joined the company. It's one of the reasons why half the UK population use us and not anyone else. The ability for us to there's something called Meerkat that you can find on our Instagram account, which is Alexander and Sergey with Shania Twain. It's like, okay, how many brands in the UK get to have fun with the headliner at Glastonbury? And I think that sums up the power of them. Clearly, when the Meerkats were discovered and Peter, who was the CEO at the time, the actual decision, and we were 4 to 4 at the time, was, right, we've tried everything else. I think it's a stupid idea, but it's this or shut it down. And the answer was, it's this. And it just exploded. That's not all the business is. And behind that brand today is a huge tech and data platform. And what we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible for you to check. Now, because of the way insurance works, and this is one of the secrets of which you would get with proper financial education, your insurer changes their appetite for risk every day. Your bank changes their appetite for risk every day. And the chance that your insurer or your bank has the best price for you today is almost zero. So just over half of all people in the UK could save between 400 and 500 quid on their car insurance just by switching. And that's because behind the scenes, the prices are moving all the time. And we sort of think our job is to make big companies fight for your business. And the fact is, all we want people to do is look.
Having a mascot like a meerkat just lightens everything up, because British culture says money's a dirty word. Don't talk about your salary, don't talk about this. So is there also an education, a cultural education that we need to do around money shouldn't be a dirty word in certain situations and you should be more open?
Yeah, so this is, I think you're touching on one of the hardest things for us to deal with as a society. And I think all of the things you mentioned are all true at the same time. And that's one of the things that's so hard about this, which is there is no real silver bullet. One, money is a dirty word, especially amongst older generations. Two, I've got great hope for my kids' generation. So my kids are sort of 21, 20, 18, 14. They talk with their mates much more openly. And I'd encourage everyone in that generation, like, don't fall into the trap we did. It's like, you come from a generation who are willing to talk, you're willing to be open. Do it, because at least one of your friends is going to be smart and will have got the education. I think you touched on another thing. One of the reasons we don't talk about it is we know no one got educated. So how's this for something to admit? My car is now 8 years old, right? I cannot bring myself to go to a garage to buy a new one because I cannot bear thinking about how to finance it. So I run like, by 3 times the biggest comparison business in the UK. And I know that I would sit in that garage and the dealer would start talking to me, and I don't know how to judge which product they're going to offer me is right. What does that say? Like, I won't buy a car because I should, of all the people, I might actually just ring up Martin Lewis and get him to explain it to me. But the fact is, I can't price it. So what chance does anyone else have?
Courage comes before confidence.
Yeah.
So do we need to get more courage to talk about money, to then build the confidence and the awareness?
So in those signed out experiences that made your career, I was 24 years old, working in corporate finance, and I was the bag carrier. I was like the person no one talks to. And I was sitting in this big meeting, and there was a big US newspaper company. This is the days when newspapers really exist, buying a UK newspaper company. And there was a real problem with the deal, and so I sat there, and it had been going on for an hour. And I thought, I think they've just got this the wrong way around. So I turned around to my boss and literally tapped him on the shoulder, and he just went, "Shut up." So another half an hour passed, and I was like, "No, I'm really certain now." And it's like, "Shut up, go and get me a coffee. I'm concentrating." It's like, okay, bought him his coffee, so. Another half an hour goes past, and it's like, okay, I've had enough of this. So I just went, "I think you got the clause the wrong way around and you just want to put not there." And he went to kill me, and the partner from Freshfields turned around and went, "That is exactly the right answer." And for me, it was the moment I realised that everyone's making it up. Totally liberating moment in my career. It's just like the idea that you can actually see all of these really important people and they're all making it up changed my life overnight. And I think that rule works for everything. So the fact is, when you're facing someone on a money question, and it can be even simpler than that, if you're sitting in the mobile phone shop and they're offering you all the things, like, what's the real interest rate on that mobile phone contract? And actually, when you work out they're making it up, everyone else is making it up, stop pretending and go to your point, which is ask the question. That confidence is where you've got to start.
I agree.
So there are 50 million adults in the UK. About 32 million of them have used Compare the Market. Alongside us and the other 3 big comparison websites, we think we've saved people about 14 billion pounds in the last 2 years, which has been pretty fundamental to helping people get through the financial crisis.
What is some of the things that you've done in your career that you've 1%ed, that you believe has helped you become a CEO, lead a fantastic organisation that serves 32 million people across the UK, and have a brilliant team?
So, when you start off, it's all about the task. Right? So you're trained, like, can you do that spreadsheet? Can you do that audit? Whatever it is. And very few people get taught about people and leading and coaching and understanding yourself. And I think for me, the 1%, which is a 1% everyday thing, is understanding myself and understanding what the person on the other side of the table is feeling. Because the higher you get in an organisation, very quickly it stops being about the task and it starts being about, can I work with my colleagues? Can I find the talent? Can I spot the 28-year-old or the 25-year-old that one day I think will be CEO of this business? And that is all about the 1% every day, because that's about being human, that's about understanding people, that's about understanding yourself. And I think that journey never ends. And I was chatting to my chief financial officer, who's on the same journey because he's on the board now and doing really well. He said, look, people sort of told me about this 15 years ago. Should I listen to them then? The other skill when you're young and early in your career is the world forces you to concentrate on this tiny thing, which is your job. And one day, you're on the executive committee or you CEO of a business, and nothing about that thing matters. It's all about the big picture. And the other thing I would have started much earlier if I could have done is constantly understanding why. So why are they doing that, and why are they doing that, and how does that fit with the whole business? And if you can train yourself into understanding the context and what's around you, not just, I know I've got to do my job, but also, why is my boss doing that, and why is my department doing that, and how do we fit into the strategy of the bank, and why does the strategy make sense? Which is hard, and that's a 1% everyday thing. If people pick that up early, I think that's also a massive game changer for them later on.
How do you, there's a big saying, if you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. And another soundbite I've kind of stole is, if you're too close to the elephant, all you can see is grey. Sometimes you have to step away from your own elephant to see all the perspectives. 6 months ago, I think it's around 6 months ago, you became a non-exec director of NHS England.
Yes.
Which is just amazing. I don't want to talk about NHS England today, but what I want to talk about is, by sitting on that board, what has it helped you in your career? And why is it really important, whether it's you're joining an external board, whether you're joining a trustee, whether you're going to volunteer, why is it really important to step away from your own elephant, your grey elephant? And what can other things that you can do around your time, around your job, and how does that help you? And what has it helped you do?
So, it does give you a huge amount of perspective. So Amanda and the team are doing an amazing job trying to recover the NHS from COVID, and the knock-on effects of it are long and deep. And I think when you see those challenges and you see how they're trying to fix it and what has to get done, it always comes back to the same thing, which is it's nearly always a leadership, people question about, have you got the right people in the right places? Do they have clarity? Do they have the capability and tools they need? And are they motivated to get it solved? And the more you see things like that in really, really complex exercises, so we have 1,000 colleagues and compare the market. The NHS as a whole has somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4 million. It's just of a completely different scale. And I think, but the fundamental challenge is the same, is how do you get those 1.2 to 1.4 million people to turn up every day motivated to make patients' lives better? And that's a fantastically challenging, interesting, and if I can help in any way, make that better. And that is going to definitely be a 1% challenge.
Well, I think it's going to get better.
It is.
Your 1%. We've only got time for one more question. Okay. You know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
So this is a great question for me, because I love the mornings. Like, I'm a terrible nighttime person. You get to about 10 o'clock at night and I thought, oh, I'm going to bed now. So one, just the sun coming through the curtains instantly wakes me up. I have always had a drive, and I think it's from my mum, was make yourself better every day. And literally, I wake up every morning like, how can you be better today? And that motivation in itself is enough to go. And in my current job, both compared to market and the savings and the help we give to people, and also NHS England, I find two of the most rewarding things you can do, because actually you can see a direct link between what you do and people's lives getting better. So waking up in the morning, flipping the duvet, not a challenge.
Wow, and there you have it. I just want to say, Mark, thank you for joining me on the show and sharing your knowledge. We've gone from interview to 1% to life lessons to insurance, and we even talked about the Meerkats, which is amazing. I just want to say, when I have a guest on, look, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I pride myself on being aware with common sense, and I can see that you have such a good heart. Just can feel it, like you have a good heart. And I've met, obviously, Debbie Hewitt, I've met you, and anyone, I don't know what jobs you have available, but anyone who's watching this, watch Debbie Hewitt's one, watch Mark's one, and then bloody get yourself over to the website and apply, or get some insurance, get some comparing going, because you know what? People do buy from people, and you're both decent humans, so thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Che vuoi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto